You survived a big week here in LA sports because you were at the center of one of the strangest moments in recent sporting memory, right? We see big moments. We see big hits in baseball. We see big shots in the NBA. You know, Derek Fisher in .4. We got all sorts of craziness. But on Tuesday night, the Magic Johnson impromptu, I'm done, I'm out. He went LeVar Ball and said, I'm out for 45 minutes, and it only started because he was able to put his arm around you, Bill Plaschke, and say, well, because Bill's here, we have to have a press conference.
Yeah.
You told me that, and I smiled, and I said, all right, now, what's the backstory of the moments leading up to this and your reaction for that 45 minutes of chaos?
The whole thing was crazy. I wasn't even going to be down there because it was their last game of the season and nobody cared. And then I got word about 3 o'clock.
Nobody cared. Well, nobody was playing. They were all hurt or on load management.
Nobody cares. So
they were done.
I was going. So then I got word about 3 o'clock. LeBron's going to do his exit interview before the game. And these interviews are done at the end of every regular season. Usually they're done the day after the season. All the players, they line up and they do them all. He was doing his, of course, being special. He was doing his before the game. So I said, well, so I raced down to the Staples Center. And before LeBron went, Luke Walton talked. So Luke talked outside the Laker locker room. We're talking to Luke. He does his press conference. He's done. And Magic just shows up out of nowhere. And I'm like, what? And he puts out of nowhere, walks over, puts his big hand on me and says, well, and he announces to everybody, Bill's here. We got to have a press conference. And everybody laughs, including like Laker officials who were standing there by laughing.
Well, they don't know what to
do. And
Magic says, right?
Magic says, no, really, we're having a press conference. They're like, what? Magic says, over here. And he leads me over and he goes to the wall, stands against the wall, looks at me and says, I'm quitting. And I said, whoa. What? And then for the next 45 minutes, he rambled and laughed and cried and rationalized and charged and allegations and ripped and criticized. And it was incredible. And we're all just standing there stunned the whole time. We're frozen in our places. And I've got my good new black dress shoes on, and usually I wear tennis shoes.
Hadn't broken them in at
walking
this point.
Shoes, these things, and I'm dying. My back is killing me. We're all dying, standing there stiff for 45 minutes with our arms outstretched with our tape recorders.
How's that shoulder feeling all these days later?
Just freaking out.
Deltoids.
It was a 45-minute freak out by everybody, and then when he ended it and he walked away, we're like, what just happened? Did he just do what we think he did? And he didn't tell Jeannie Buss. We're the first ones to know about this. We're like looking around at Laker officials saying, did you know this? And they're like, we didn't know this. And then finally, he talked for so long, somebody in the back, one of the journalists, just kind of lost it, just said, Magic, that's it, just enough. We're done with you. He says, all right, I'm done. And it was crazy. And we spent the rest of the night trying to figure out why exactly he had quit. And what we came up with was because bottom line was he wasn't suited for the job anyway.
Sure. I think that was apparent.
And it was not coincidental that this happened on the last day of the season, which is the first day of the general manager's toughest job, which is to find free agents, draft players, make trades, all that stuff. He didn't want that, but what spurred it was he wanted to fire Luke Walton and Rob Pelinka, and Jeannie Buss wouldn't let him fire both. Turns out she would have let him fire one, Luke, because he got fired 3 days later, but she wasn't going to give him Pelinka. He wanted both. It was an all or nothing deal. He was out.
With the idea of firing Rob Pelinka, and that I look at it two-pronged and over the course of the week, right? You have Magic, one of the big parts of his 45-minute monologue, which I'm going to do for an acting class to try to get in next week, because I think there's so much range of emotion. I think I could really do a hell of a job and might be able to sell.
During this monologue, he even ripped me for ripping the Dodgers. Bill, I'm going to go watch the Dodgers now, and you better stop ripping them.
No, he started getting into the rotation. Like, what are you doing? It's a stream of consciousness rambling. But, like, he hit really big on the, I want to be happy being Magic Johnson again. I just want to go back to the business of being Magic, which is I show up,
true.
I shake hands, I kiss babies, and when guys call, I can take their call and not worry about somebody fining me or being mad at me, because that's really at the core of it, right? He doesn't want to be booed. He doesn't want anybody mad at him. He's Magic.
Right.
And the fans that loved him for 38 years suddenly didn't love him anymore because their Lakers were in year 6 of a tailspin, and you could put a lot of it at his feet.
It's so true that he wanted to be Magic and be bulletproof again, and he wasn't that. But a part of being Magic again, he wanted to be in control. He runs all his businesses.
Right.
He's a world business operation. He's an icon. He's a business mogul, and he suddenly couldn't fire the two people who he needed to fire. So that's what spurred it. He said, you know what? I want to be Magic again, and I can't be Magic in this situation.
But you surround yourself with good people. I really thought both were going to be out. I was surprised only Luke Walton was out. Rob Pelinka remains power seizing perhaps here in the Lakers front office. But we look at the vacuum that's been created. You got Jeannie Buss at the top. Rob Pelinka is there and seemingly going to assume much more control. You have one legend out. Jeannie's got to mend fences, and they've done so on Twitter a little bit with Magic Johnson, but he's out of the organization, right? He'll be an ambassador or whatever they call him when he comes back, but he's done. And with Pelinka, you've got the Kobe Bryant story and going back from Petros all the way when Pelinka was hired. I've called him a shadow figure for forever in terms of a guy, hey, what do I do now? Give a call back to Kobe. So we've got that.
Yeah, now I don't think Kobe's as involved as people think he is.
I don't know that he needs to. I think really it could just be a call here and there.
He's really disavowed himself, dissociated himself with basketball. I mean, he's really into his businesses. I'll never forget, I talked to him right after he retired, and they just fired Byron Scott. I said, what do you think about firing Byron Scott? He says, I don't care. It's not my team anymore. I'm not worried about him anymore. I don't think he's that involved, but I think Pelinka is beloved by Linda Rambis and Jeannie Buss. I say Linda Rambis. People may not have heard of her before.
Well, you know Kurt Rambis and his goggles.
She's Kurt's wife. She's the director of special projects for the Lakers, but in fact, she wields almost as much power as Jeannie Buss. She's Jeannie's confidant. She's her friend. She's her advisor. Everything goes through her. And from what I understand, Jeannie and Linda love Pelinka, and they think he's doing a great job. And he's going to be the man moving forward, which should scare the heck out of Laker fans.
Well, no, and that becomes the question now. You've got this void, and you've got head coaching interviews lining up. Tyronn Lue, former Laker. I mean, it would give them another opportunity to get that group picture they like so much. That every time they hire a former Laker, hey, you get the bat phone rings in their offices and they have to come in and do a big photo thing. Yeah, and be at the press conference and stand at attention in the whole 9 yards. I mean, they're all paid as ambassadors, I think, so they'd at least do something for that day's work. So I guess that would work. But part of me wants to see them maybe stretch their legs a bit and go outside the family and outside of the
I've written that. She's the family, because they're all family. You overlook each other's shortcomings. You give people bigger chances than they deserve. It was because of family, quote unquote, that she hired Magic and Pelinka in the first place. Well, and she never should have done. And so they're going to do the same thing with Tyronn Lue. The only difference is, I think they're stuck with LeBron. And I say stuck, and I mean that. I don't mean that facetiously. They are stuck with LeBron for 3 more years. Now that they got him, and he's not going anywhere until he goes somewhere, you might as well get a coach he likes.
Well,
what are they going to do?
So, right, and that's why Luke ultimately is out, right? Whether Jeannie wanted to fire him, I mean, there's clutch management, there's LeBron James, and you've got puppet strings being pulled somewhere in all of this in terms of the power plays that are being made. So Tyronn Lue makes sense to kind of bridge that gap, a guy that obviously thrived with LeBron, knows how to work with him and build from there. So make the most of your 3 years, I guess, would
That's
be
the
philosophical run at this point, right?
But
is see what you can do, and you're creating an uneasy marriage in that regard because now you're ceding more control.
Oh, you're giving
to LeBron. You're giving up the farm, right?
But you know what? They've already done that. They've already given him the
farm
by
bringing him on board.
You bring him on board, you're stuck with him. You got to live with that. Tiger's attempting a birdie putt right here, and I'm going to call it, but I don't have the British.
No, you can't do play-by-play.
Oh, you can't?
No, they'll yank you from this studio really quick.
Okay, well, I'm just watching.
Just watch it. Watch it with your eyes. I'll finish the thought. Yeah, I mean, you've already gone in. The pound of flesh has already been paid by bringing LeBron James into the organization and the power that he wields and the celebrity and all of that. So, to my thinking at this point, you're either trading him or you have to go all in.
Yeah, and I think that's what they'll do. That they'll go all in and see what happens. And I don't like the future of it. I don't like the future under Pelinka. I don't like the long-term future. Remember, Ty Lue won a championship with LeBron in Cleveland. The minute LeBron left Cleveland, he got fired.
Well, but that's the hard part, right? Is now you're looking at it as just a short 3-year window, and then you're right back to the same mess of who's running the shop, everything you built, because you have to build the team to work around LeBron. You're building it to him. and trying to get any superstar, regardless of what platitudes they might take, right? Kevin Durant softening his stance on LeBron in the press a little bit when he said, hey, I knew what I was getting into when I went to the Warriors, and I was prepared for it, much like LeBron was. LeBron wasn't. And Kevin Durant certainly has not been. He can play revisionist history all he wants. He certainly was not ready. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep popping off at everybody and getting mad in social media spheres every time someone says a negative word about him, his involvement, or the team. But how many of those guys want to come and be part of what the LeBron experiment while LeBron's still the alpha? And let's face it, he's never giving up that chair until he walks into the good night in Space Jam 3.
Well, I've talked about this before, is that when Kevin Durant came out this last fall and said the environment around LeBron's toxic, he doesn't want to get involved in it, I ripped Kevin Durant in the paper and said, you're a big baby, you don't want to play with LeBron, that's on you. Well, guess what we've learned in the past 6 months? Kevin Durant was right.
Kind of, you put the lens on it, right? Being around it a bit more, you see how the
a circus.
The machine works.
It is a circus, and it's all about him. And and again, this is the reason he's having trouble getting people to appear in Space Jam 2 with him.
Well, between that and just the shoe deals, right? Because it's basically a Nike project,
yeah.
So all the guys from Under Armour, Adidas, and everything.
But I think
else,
it's also they don't want to be dunked on him all summer. And I think that's so. Yes, I think it's going to be tough. One star that I think could come. If they get Ty Lue, maybe he can get Kyrie Irving out here, and that would make a difference.
Well, that would also make for more headlines for folks that write for, say, the LA Times, like my esteemed colleague Bill Plaschke.
Well,
Kyrie's.
We've lost a huge bunch of headlines with Magic leaving. We need somebody to step in and fill the gap.